There's many areas of waste that can cause the equity to be eaten away at. As an attorney, you wear many hats. You're not only trying to solve their litigation problems, whether it's a probate dispute, a divorce, or just regular litigation, but you're trying to make sure that they walk away with the right amount of equity. So we're going to cover a number of things that can eat away at their equity, with the first one being accumulation of days on market. Why is that a problem? Well, as a property sits on the market, it causes buyers to believe either something is wrong with the home or that it's overpriced. This is no different than if you look at clothing in a store and you see something just sitting there and nobody's buying it. What happens eventually? The store lowers the price. The longer that a home sits on the market, the buyers feel like they have more leverage. They feel like they can offer a lower price. This is why often I tell my clients that the best value is done within the first few weeks of putting the property on the market. That's why it's important to price the market right from the beginning. There's a negative perception that can drive down interest. I have it happen to me all the time. I have it happening with a client right now who really likes a property, but she says, why has it been on the market for 9 months? Well, sometimes it's just a coincidence. It might be the second best property every day, and as soon as the best property sells, another one comes on, they're still the second best. But the perception that it gives to the public can cause you to lose a lot of equity. Another thing that comes up a lot of times is homes often generate the most excitement during the first few weeks on the market. Why? Because everybody wants the new home. So again, if you don't do the right value in the beginning, you're going to lose that excitement to the public, you're going to lose the higher values, and you're going to cause the prices to come down. You know, the funny thing is, at the end of the day, I also have always been told that there seems to be a common myth that waiting longer is going to bring the right buyer, but the data shows it usually just means a deeper price cut. Leaving a home sitting on the market, waiting and hoping and praying that a buyer comes along thinking that, oh, your home is worth it. 99% it's not going to happen. The only chance you have of that potentially happening is if you're in a crazy upswinging market and you started off high and eventually the market catches you. It's a dangerous game to play. So again, it's imperative that when you speak to your clients that we discuss pricing the home properly so we don't eat away their equity by having the home sit on the market. One of the second reasons that can eat away at equity has to do with the property not being in the proper condition to list. So what happens if there's an order to list a property in a week and the home is a disaster? I get these orders often, and this goes back to me always talking about the importance of specific orders. Typically, the judge hasn't seen the home. Typically, the attorney hasn't seen the home, and the condition is really important. When we go to take pictures, pictures are 85% of the reason why people want to schedule a showing. So it's important that the home be in good condition. When realtors come to visit the home, if they see a messy home or there's lots of repairs, they wind up talking negative about the home to their buyers and even to some of their fellow realtors. That causes buyers to have a lower expectation before they've even seen the home. So before they've stepped foot in your client's home, they're already reducing the price in their mind. They're also assuming that those costs of repairs is a lot higher than they actually are. So it's always important that you get the home in proper order. Don't have them walk into the home and see something that you could fix for $200 and make them wonder, my God, they're selling the home for $500,000 or $1 million and they couldn't spend $300 to fix the hole in the wall. What else is wrong with the property? When you have a home that's not ready and all these things go on, you wind up decreasing the buyer pool because realtors don't want to show the property. So even when they get new buyers, they talk negative about the property. And then last and not least, one of the funny ones that I've seen in my 20-something year career is somebody advertising that they're selling the home as is. They're telegraphing to the buyers to lower the value, that there must be a problem. There must be something hidden. As a seller, they don't have to take the buyer's terms. So if you don't like what they're asking in their offer, don't take it. But don't put yourself in a bad position by using the words selling the home as is only. So let's go a little bit deeper. What is another reason that would cause equity to be wasted? It really has to do with the list price missing the mark. The list price should really be a strategy based on circumstances of the sale. Now, you heard me talk in an earlier video, and we were talking about the importance of pricing the property as opposed to worrying about what day it goes on. Well, stipulating that the price must match the appraised value can really impact the client's equity. So that is not a good order to put in place. And yet at times I see these in MSAs. I've seen them in court orders for not just divorce sales, but I've seen them in litigation sales. The voice of the market is really the sold listings, and that should be the most important thing to consider when coming up with the list price of a property. Yes, an appraiser will try their hardest to give you an approximate value, but as I've spoken about, it's an opinion of value, no different than a realtor. We should be looking at the solds, and then we have to do pluses and minuses to come up with the right one. Now, the longer a home languishes on the market, the more equity that is going to be lost. Why? Continued mortgage payments, continued taxes, deferred maintenance could get worse. So at the end of the day, what if the parties disagree with each other on how to list the property? Does the realtor that you're working with have a solution for this? What if one party wants to list the property at $1 million and the other party wants to list it at $800,000? Do you spend their money and go back to court? Do you spend months fighting about what value the home should go to market at? I say not. What has worked for me really well in these cases is to get both parties to agree. Either we'll meet in the middle at $900,000, or maybe we'll start at $1 million with an upfront in agreement that if there's no offer being negotiated in 30 days, the price will automatically come down 5%. And we will do that every 30 days until we have an offer. Some people get scared. Isn't it going to go down to a crazy low price? No, it's going to go down to the value that the market is willing to accept. And sometimes, and I've had this happen many times in my career, you do a price adjustment and now all of a sudden you attract multiple people, and guess what? They bid the price back up. So remember, my goal is to, as a neutral, is to get both parties the most amount of money. So make sure when you put the home on the market, the home is priced properly and it's not done just basis of what one of the parties wants. It has to make sense, as I am an advocate for the value of the property. Next, we're going to talk about the urgency to sell. And some people turn around to me and say, my God, I didn't realize there were so many different things that can affect the equity of a sale. I always say that there's 6 things that are the most important. And again, right now we're going to talk about the urgency to sell. And how does the urgency to sell really affect the pricing of a property? Well, in some ways it does, in some ways it doesn't. But let's say there's a delinquent mortgage, a pending foreclosure, a bankruptcy. Well, it's important to get that property really priced properly from the beginning. Otherwise, it's going to sit on the market. And if you go to bankruptcy, not only are you going to spend a lot of money in legal fees, because that's what the bank's going to charge you for the bankruptcy and the foreclosure, but you're going to ruin your credit. And it's a lot harder to build credit from a bankruptcy and a foreclosure than it is just for having late payments on your mortgage. The other thing about urgency to sell is it can force you to accept a lower price and you give up on negotiation power. The equity is the portion of the property that you own, but it's the value is only realized when the property is sold. So just because an appraiser, just because Zillow, Redfin, or any other site said that your home is worth $1 million and you owe $500,000, your equity's not $500,000. The sale price is not $1 million. The sale price is what the market's willing to pay. And here's a perfect example. There's a property in one of my towns that I'm working with a client. And when I looked it up on Redfin said it was worth a little over $1.5 million. The same day, Realtor.com said it was worth $1.4 million and change. Big difference, but that's nothing compared to Zillow. This was the biggest discrepancy I've ever seen. Zillow said the property was worth $850,000. If you're going to think your equity is based on just looking at a value or an appraisal, hopefully you realize that you can't. The only thing you could look at is the sold price that a consumer is willing to pay. Now, a well-priced home is going to create a bidding war. But when you're under pressure, you may not have time to wait. But what's excellent is if we take the property that we think is worth $500,000 and we need to get it sold quickly, are you better off listing it at $475,000, $450,000? I guarantee you that your quantity of showings will escalate exponentially. And then emotions kick in because people buy homes based on 2 things: value and emotions. And people tend to spend more when their emotions kick in than they thought they were going to spend. So if you are in an urgent situation, make sure you price it properly in the beginning. Now, what's the best strategy to sell without sacrificing equity? Again, pricing the home properly from the start. If you have no offers in 30 days, do a price reduction and make sure the price reduction is real. An example, if you have your home listed for $600,000, 30 days later, this is the mistake I see by a lot of novice realtors. They adjust the price to $590,000. I'm saying this to everybody. That's not a price adjustment. If the consumer thought the home was worth $590,000 when it was listed for $600,000, they would have made an offer on the property. The purpose of a price adjustment serves 3 things. 1, it's to try and cause people to come back that saw the home, liked it, but thought it was overpriced. 2, Maybe there's people that saw it on online sites, Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, whatever it be. They thought it was a nice home, but they thought it was priced too much to come visit. Well, we're trying to convince them to come back. And 3, we might be looking for a new pool of buyers in a lower price range. So what is sales sabotage and how can it affect the sale? Does it really happen? Oh, I promise you it has. How about refusal of showings? Limited showing schedules, home kept in poor condition, odors in the house, negatively affecting buyers. Guys, I've been through all of this. It's really important that there's specific orders in place that maybe has nobody home when the home is showed. There should be specific orders related to the showing schedule. There should be specific orders that pets are not to be home, etc., etc. What happens with sales sabotage? The home gets a bad reputation with agents. Then it goes back and languishes on the market, which is one of the problems we spoke about earlier. And what happens next? The values come down because nobody wants to view the home. And if nobody views the home, nobody's buying the home. So how do you protect the sale from sales sabotage? Proper court orders. Those orders should be related to showings. For example, I often say that the parties that live in the house will show the property no less than 3 days during the week between the hours of 9 and 6, and they'll show it at least 1 day on the weekend between the hours of 11 and 5. That's a specific order. That's very different than just having an order that says the parties will cooperate with the realtor. You need to be specific. The goal is to make sure that the home gets sold for the best value in a great amount of time, so we make the most amount of money for the parties to fight over. If you have to go back to the court for a problem, it should be to enforce an order, not to put an order in place. So one of the areas that I'd like to talk about last is conflict. What is conflict? Does conflict really occur in selling real estate? I could tell you this. It occurs even when there's not litigation going on between happy couples. How about the inability to agree on the listing price, which causes delay with getting the property on the market? How about dividing personal property that hasn't been divided yet in the home? How about agreement on compensation? If I don't have agreement on compensation from day one, I can't even put the property on the market. Does this stuff really happen? You bet it. I have this happen in 95% of my cases. But here's the interesting thing. I've been court appointed for the last 10 years by many judges in both family and the chancery courts. And I could tell you that counsel's listening, the court is listening, orders are improving. What does that do at the end of the day? It makes this part of your process with your client's case a lot smoother. If you have to go to court, you should be going to court to try and enforce a motion, not filing a motion with the court every week to put something else in place due to a non-cooperation or a conflict. If we could put many orders in place from the beginning, then we could help your clients get through this process easier. We know that it's in a very emotional process for your clients. It's not just financial. There's a big change in their life. Maybe your client is the one that's currently living in the home and they have to move. Maybe your client moved out of the home, but they need the money that's tied up in the equity of the sale to continue their life. Whatever it is, they deserve to find their next rainbow, and I'm the person to help get them there. If you have any questions about anything that I've covered in this video or any of my other videos, if I could be of any help with any of your cases, any real estate questions that you have, even if I'm not on the case, please hit me up on LinkedIn. Give me a phone call. Just reach out. I'm here to help. Michael Klein, Corcoran Sawyer Smith, your realtor to the legal community.